Senator Bernie Sanders is an independent in Vermont. He endorsed Zohran Mamdani for mayor. In a new op-ed for The Guardian, he asked, quote, will the Democrats learn from Zohran Mamdani's victory? And he joins me now. Senator, what's your reaction to the big upset last night?
Enthusiastic. It was one of the great political victories in modern history. Zohran ran a brilliant campaign. And I think the most significant part of his campaign, and I, Chris, would not compare it to Obama or to Clinton. What Zohran understood is that in order to win, you got to be more than charismatic, and he is. You got to be more than smart, which he is. You got to build a strong grassroots movement around a progressive agenda. He had thousands and thousands of people knocking on doors because they were excited about his message. And his message said, you know what? In a time of unprecedented income and wealth inequality, we are going to ask the richest people in New York City to stop paying their fair share of taxes. So among other things, we can address the major crisis facing New York and America, by the way, is soaring housing costs. They're going to freeze rent at a time when families can't afford decent quality food. He's talking about helping to create publicly funded grocery stores so that kids can get food that's affordable, making buses free. He's giving people a positive agenda, not just going after Trump, but giving something that people can believe in, an analysis which reflects their reality. So I thought it was a great campaign, and I look forward to continue to work with him.
You know, one thing I think is that I'm curious what you think of this theory. I think one thing that happens in campaigns is people get risk averse the more sort of backing they have, and so they don't want to screw it up. And the more that you're coming from a position of like no one expects you to win, it does also give you latitude to actually go out and try stuff. Like even whether that's a new ideas, like we're going to try publicly funded grocery stores. Like no one else is saying that, but I do think there's an appetite for risk or trying new things that was so palpable in this campaign that seems to me also really important.
But it's not just, he sat up at night, I think, this is, a risky idea, but we'll do it. I think he is prepared, and this is the point. Look, what is the Democratic Party today, Chris? It is, I don't think people can argue with us. It is funded by very wealthy people. It is run by inside the Beltway consultants who really have very little clue about what's going on in the real world. And that is why I think, sadly, Kamala Harris lost an election that she should have won. It is a party which is not going to take on powerful special interests because of fundraising fears. And it certainly has turned its back on working people. And Zohran did all of that. He changed all of that about. And the question is, will the Democratic leadership learn from his campaign? I doubt it. I think they would rather go down with the Titanic than give up the fact that they are captains of the boat. But it doesn't really matter what they think. What Zohran's campaign showed is that people are prepared to stand up and fight for change. We're seeing that in the Fighting Oligarchy talk. We saw it last week. Millions of people came out to the No King rally. People understand that our political and economic system is broken, that the rich get richer and millions of people are struggling to put food on the table. They understand the two parties today are not responding to their needs. They want something different. And I think Zohran touched on that reality.
I think some people may know this part of your bio, but some may not, which is that you were a congressman for Vermont, the at-large. There's one district. You are obviously a U.S. senator. Before that, you were a mayor in Burlington. And I'm curious, you were a socialist mayor. There's not a ton of them. We don't have a really long list of socialist mayors in America. So from one former socialist mayor to a man who may be a socialist mayor, one of the things I think about that job, whatever size municipality you're governing is, you really got to deliver for people. Like you're not taking votes, right? So people are going to see very tangibly, like, is this working or not? And I'm curious how you think about what advice you would offer from that perspective, which is very different than being a senator or legislator.
Well, I just spoke to Zohran a little while ago, and I had some thoughts about it's going to be a very hard job. I mean, running any big city in America today with all of the crises that municipalities are facing is just not easy. And he's going to have to think long and hard about how you can run that city in a way that really works well for working people. But what I did as mayor of Burlington, and I was reelected 3 times, taking on Democrats and Republicans, is we focused on the basic issues. I kept property taxes as low as I could. I was conscious of the fact a lot of people can't afford higher taxes. We paved the streets, the sidewalks. We paid attention to working class and low income areas that had been ignored for years. We started an after school program. We started a child care program. We started a teen center for kids, which people still remember. We built affordable housing, started new ideas, community land trust for housing, which is now being done literally all over the world. It was started in Burlington, Vermont. So your point is we also spoke out on national issues, and we had a foreign policy. People joke, Burlington had a foreign policy. We could do it, but you can't do that unless you are paying attention to the day-to-day needs of working class people. So I remember one guy wrote, somebody said, your mayor is a socialist. What do you think about that? The guy says, I really don't know, but he is getting the streets paved.
Yes, that's exactly. It all starts from there at every level of politics. Senator Bernie Sanders.
So, hello and welcome to Santa Cruz for Bernie's Endorsement Forum. I'm Brett Garrett. I'm the convener of Santa Cruz for Bernie. We'll be discussing a few issues tonight. A proposed endorsement for Sean Doherty, who's running Virginia Panetta's seat in 2026. I think we'll also, there's other candidates who have been invited to make their case tonight. I believe they're not here. We will also consider 3 ballot initiatives that are up for a vote on November 4th of this year. Much sooner than I realized, the election is less than 7 weeks from today. It's coming up soon. Santa Cruz voters will be deciding on 2 housing measures, Measure B from the realtors, and Measure C, which is endorsed by many affordable housing advocates, including Don Lane. So we'll do that very soon. Very quick community announcement. I want everyone to know that Sunday is this weekend. Not just any Sunday, but the Sun Day Festival, celebrating all the wonderful things that come from the sun, including renewable solar energy.
Yeah, this Sunday.
Yes, this Sunday, September 21st. There's a national website. There's events all over the country. The website is sunday.earth. And the local celebration here is in Santa Cruz at Mission Park, 12 to 5 this Sunday. I'll be there talking about personal rapid transit. I'll have a table and PRT cookies, if you can believe it. Anyway, so it's time to welcome our facilitator, Sandy Brown. Most of us know Sandy as a very recent heroic member of the Santa Cruz City Council from late 2016 through most of 2024. She was often a lone progressive voice for the causes that we support. She's also has been an organizer for the Community Action Board, and more recently she is serving as an analyst for Supervisor Justin Cummings at the county level. She's also a faculty member at San Jose State University, where she's taught geography, public affairs, American studies, and other subjects. And I think most of us know her and love her and adore her.
Hi everyone, it's good to be here. Thank you for coming tonight. It's exciting to see people who are wanting to engage around our local electoral decisions that we're going to be making this year and an off year. They're interesting times we're in. I could go on, but you all know. Another thing I'll just say about myself, because Brett said I could add if anything he missed. I want to say, I say this every time I'm up here before you, I was elected to the Santa Cruz City Council in 2016. I decided to run for City Council because Bernie Sanders made that call. Like he called out to communities all over the country and said, run for office. People, we need good people in local electoral positions. And I hadn't been persuaded by my friends and fellow activists in the previous round, but that really moved me, and it felt like a good time. So I just wanted to say that Bernie Sanders and everything that he stands for, his platform, are inspirational to me. They continue to be. And those of you who are Santa Cruz for Bernie members of our local group, I know share that. I want to just go over the program briefly here so folks know how things are going to run. And I do have a couple of announcements. I guess before I get started, there's swag. There are t-shirts back there, and they're very cool. And they are available for a contribution of whatever amount you would like to make. So please do take a look when you have a moment and get your Bernie swag. Still worth wearing. So we are going to start with congressional candidate for the 19th district, Sean Doherty, who is here and ready to go, I can tell. And we'll do about 5 minutes there and then some Q&A. If folks have questions for any of our speakers and their positions, Nora Hoffman in the back there has cards. You can get a card from her, write it down. We'll get those asked and answered. So please do think about anything you'd like to know about either Prop 50, which is going to go next after Sean Doherty. We'll have available time for a representative of the Yes on Prop 50 redistricting campaign, and if there is anyone here who would like to speak for the no position, you are welcome to. We will then move into...
I'd just like to mention that we did invite another candidate for the congressional district, incumbent Jimmy Panetta, and he said he was, I did get a response, which I thought was good, but his aides said that he had a previous engagement.
After we hear from Sean and do some Q&A, we'll, like I said, do Prop 50, yes and no positions for anybody who wants to weigh in on behalf of those campaigns. And then we will take up 2 Santa Cruz City measures that will be on the ballot. The first is, we're going to go with C first, even though C is after B. The Yes on C workforce housing measure that has been developed by a group of affordable housing advocates, and then we'll hear from Bruce Van Allen on that, and then the no on C position. Hector Marin is here. Hello, Hector. Again, questions, and then we will move into Measure B, the realtors measure, and I don't believe we have a representative from the Yes on B campaign. I don't believe they took up the call either, Jeffrey?
They were invited.
They were invited.
The Realtors Association was invited.
And but we will make time for that. And then we'll have a little break and have time to caucus and vote. And an announcement about endorsements should happen by 9 p.m. I'm hoping that we can move through this a little more quickly. I'm going to try to keep everybody on task. So with that, I will invite up Mr. Doherty to give us his 5-minute wrap. And if anybody has questions, just get those ready so I can take them. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It was 2 years ago, just about, when I announced that I was running against Panetta in 2024. It was in this room, and I remember I was so nervous that the mic was shaking. I don't know if people could hear it, but that seems so distant. It's really great to be here. Bernie Sanders is how I came to be involved with electoral politics in the first place. Before Bernie ran in 2016, I attended protests and I voted. And those were two completely different things, completely unrelated to one another. It was when Bernie ran when I realized, oh, we can get someone into office who I believe in and who's advocating for the policies that I want. That's incredible. And so I went to my first phone banking event for Bernie, and I bought a t-shirt, and I talked incessantly to my friends and my family and my coworkers ad nauseum about Bernie. And then I moved to Santa Cruz, and it was right before the primary here in California, and I went to a meeting at London Nelson where we filled the biggest room. And I just couldn't believe it. I had never felt energy like that before. And even though Bernie lost, I was so pumped, especially with, victories like Sandy, I was so pumped. I felt like we could really change the world. I started knocking doors for Measure M, the rent control, dragged my wife along for that. I started getting involved with local political campaigns. And then there was the 2020 race, again, lost. That actually was a bigger blow to me. But I did stay involved with Santa Cruz for Bernie. And actually, it was through my involvement with Santa Cruz for Bernie that I discovered that there were a number of us in leadership in the advisory group that were very upset with how Jimmy Panetta was dealing with the Ukraine war. And it was me, Jeffrey, Nora, Linda, and we tried to get some time with Panetta, just 5 minutes to talk to him about our concerns. And we couldn't even get those 5 minutes. And that's when I decided to run. I said, and it was, my idea was I'm just going to make t-shirts that say, my daddy didn't run the CIA. I just wanted to call attention to the fact this guy is not in office because of merit. He's in office because of who his daddy is. It's nepotism, plain and simple, and everybody knows that. It's funny how often people accidentally call him Leon. It happens all the time. So, but then my wife said, no, we need to run a serious race. Like, if you're going to run, let's try to win. And so we made a website, we made flyers, we distributed them at events. We got the Santa Cruz for Bernie endorsement, which was huge, by the way. And then October 7th happened, and that changed everything. Because Jimmy was fully supporting Israel's actions, people started looking for an alternative. And by the time it was December and January, people realized that they couldn't pressure Jimmy to change his position. That's also when we learned that AIPAC was dumping tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars into his campaign. So then people started wanting to support my campaign, but by then it was too late. We didn't have the infrastructure to bring in all these volunteers. However, thanks to Santa Cruz for Bernie knocking doors in Santa Cruz County, and thanks to the large Muslim American community in Santa Clara County that was putting up signs for me, we got the highest vote percentage for a Green candidate running for federal office in the whole country. And if we had had more time to organize with all those volunteers coming in, we could have done a lot better. And that's what's going to happen this time. Congressional District 19, the constituents in this district are waking up to what Jimmy Panetta is. They see what he's done in his unconditional support for what Israel is doing to the people in Palestine. They can also see who his donors are. In 2024, that election cycle, Jimmy Panetta's top donor was AIPAC. Go to opensecrets.org and you can see this. And I think because of that he is unconditionally supporting Israel. And I don't think he's ever going to do what his constituents want. His constituents want an end to the genocide. Full stop.
Yeah.
80%, almost 80% of Democrats, rank and file Democrats, want an arms embargo on Israel. But we're never going to get that. We're never going to get that from Jimmy Panetta. Now, who is his second biggest donor, according to opensecrets.org? The insurance industry. Do you think someone who's taking all that money from the insurance industry is going to give us Medicare for all? No. Third biggest, real estate. Do you think he's going to give us affordable housing, or is he going to favor the real estate developers, right? I want us to have social housing and public banking. You'll never get that from Jimmy Panetta. Big ag, that's another one. Consistently in his top donors. Is he going to help us end the use of pesticides that are poisoning the children in our community, giving them autism, ADHD, brain cancer, and more? No, he never will. It is politicians like Jimmy Panetta who are taking these donations that are driving people to the right, to people like Donald Trump, because they don't believe in the Democrats. They don't believe that it's possible to elect someone that will fight for them. And so they're falling for Donald Trump. So, as I said, we got the highest percentage of a vote for the Green Party in the whole country. And now that I've got paid staff, I've got some proper infrastructure, I think we can actually shock the country. Yes. So please, I ask for your vote. I think that Santa Cruz for Bernie is absolutely critical to removing Jimmy Panetta from office. Thank you.
You're notary or whatever your what's your last name?
Oh, did I not say my name? I'm Sean Doherty, running for Congress.
Say your name again.
Sean Doherty.
The ones, all the things back here.
Yeah,
well,
that's
I'm so grateful because I call the Commissioner's office almost every week and tell them we're voting you out, you don't represent your constituents, you're just corrupted by APAC blood money. Every week I call him and tell him. And I'm so glad that I'm going to call him next tomorrow and tell him, yeah, we're going to make sure Sean takes your...
Well, go to SeanForCongress.org and sign up for our newsletter. You'll start getting email announcements about events that we're doing and ways that you can help the campaign.
And I'll tell them that's why you don't represent us and we don't want this genocide going on any longer. It's so disgusting.
Can you and we organize a major event with you as speaker to increase your name recognition?
Yes. Wow, that's what you call softball. Yes, yes, we can. Yeah, go to SeanForCongress.org. Or actually, Ashley, can you stand up, please? This is Ashley Brown. This is my campaign manager. Yeah, last time I was a campaign manager, and I was a father of an infant, and I had a full-time job, so that's not possible. This time, I have a full-time campaign manager, so talk to her. If you're interested in organizing an event, talk to Ashley. Also, you can go to SeanForCongress.org and give us your email, and you'll start getting announcements from us.
My question is, why do you decide to run green? I think you mentioned how 80% of Democrats want to stop the genocide. And my question is just, why not run Democrat, cater to that majority in the party?
I am concerned that when someone runs as a Democrat, it's much easier for them to be co-opted. And the voters have to take their word for it, take the candidate's word for it when they say that they're not going to take all this dark money, this dirty money. As a Green, I'm not allowed to take super PAC money. I'm not allowed to take dark money. If I were to take that money, I would lose the G, and I'd have to go to D. So to me, the G is almost like certified USDA organic. For real, like you see me on the ballot, you say, oh, you can't take that money. If I took the money, I'd be kicked out. So that to me is the number one thing, because I'm tired of hearing politicians promise the moon and the stars, but then they get into office and they just are totally co-opted.
So follow-up question, would you caucus with the Democrats if elected to try to get on committees and things like that?
Yes, I could. Yeah, that would. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if I agree with them on something, I'll work with them, absolutely. My goal is not to sink the Democratic Party. If anything, my goal is to push the Democratic Party to get that oligarchic money out.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
By the way, Bernie Sanders has very recently encouraged us to run for Congress as independents in districts where that won't risk putting a Republican into office. And let me remind people, because a lot of people don't know this, we have a top 2 primary system here in California. So that means the top 2 vote getters in the primary face off in the general. So the only way that a Republican could get into office in CD19 is if 2 Republicans run in the primary and get position 1 and 2 in the primary and then face off in the general. Not going to happen. Realistically, what's going to happen is it's either going to be Democrat versus Republican or Democrat versus Green facing off in the general. So there's no spoiler effect here with the top 2 system.
What is your strategy? Because, Panetta came in with just because his father, right? Leon had been there and he just grabbed onto his coattails and everyone knows that Panetta name. So what is your strategy to get your name out there and make yourself known. And, you know, I will do anything to get that Jimmy Panetta out of office.
Right. Well, we're going to be doing a big door knocking campaign probably in 2026. I want to start right now, but everybody's telling me no, it's too soon, Sean. We're doing social media, we're going to events, passing out flyers. A lot of it's going to have to be word of mouth. If we can afford it, we'll put up billboards. We're paying for ads on social media. Anything that we can afford to do. And we want people to be tabling at the farmers markets, for example.
You have a website so we can see what all your positions are?
Yeah, so I've got cards in the back. They look like, if you get one of these cards, they look like this. Yeah, maybe, Ashley, could you just maybe pass them out to everybody?
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah,
There's also the town halls, you know.
Oh, good point. We've been, yes, that's very important. That's something that we've been putting a lot of energy into is we've been holding these virtual town hall events where we've been partnering with different activist groups. For example, in the past week, we hosted the two people on hunger strike over the use of pesticides. And then we had another guest who's an activist trying to end the use of pesticides, particularly around schools. And so hopefully we're reaching into their communities as well, bringing them in. We're going to be doing one on public transportation. We're going to be doing one on reparations. We're going to be we've got a whole bunch coming up, and hopefully we're building up a coalition by doing that.
And how do we interview from the man who's going on the pesticide fast, I'd say, the fast against the pesticides. What is his name, Omar?
Omar, yeah.
How do we get the link for these meetings?
If you sign up for our email, if you go to seanforcongress.org and sign up and give your name and email, you'll get announcements that way.
I want to thank you for your time, Sean, for being here, and thank you for the questions. It's time we're going to move on to next up, we have allotted 15 minutes to discuss the Proposition 50 redistricting measure that is going to be on our ballot, and I right now want to invite up a representative, if we have one from the Yes on 50 campaign.
Yes.
Yes,
Larry.
thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't know who it was. It's not in my show notes here. Larry, did you say?
Yeah.
Larry,
Yeah.
come on up. And you've got 5 minutes to make the case for for Santa Cruz Bernie to endorse yes on Prop 50, the redistricting measure. Thank you.
My name is Larry Feldman. I'm a member of Indivisible Santa Cruz and the Democracy small group of Indivisible Santa Cruz. And at our last meeting, we discussed Proposition 50. Somebody was asked to volunteer to make some flyers about that, which I volunteered to do, and they are now on the table along with the clothing on the corner of the table. Please feel free to take one of each and pass them around and put them up on bulletin boards. The more we can get the word out about this very important proposition, the better. So, our democracy is under attack. Strong action is required to counter the repeated efforts of Donald Trump and his congressional Republican accomplices to undermine our Constitution and destroy the rule of law. Proposition 50 is such a strong action. Prop 50 is a response to what the Republicans in Texas and now also in Missouri and possibly other states under Republican control are trying to do, namely rig the 2026 congressional election by gerrymandering their districts in ways that favor Republican candidates. So California, the governor and the state legislature said, we got to respond to this. If Trump gets 2 more years of total power, we won't have a democracy. We got to stop this now. Prop 50 is not something that any of us would necessarily want to do under ordinary circumstances, but these are not ordinary circumstances. So what Prop 50 does is the state legislature submitted redistricting maps, being careful to not in any way violate the Voting Rights Act in terms of racial representation and ethnic representation, but increasing the likelihood that Democrats would win 5 districts to counteract the 5 districts that the Republicans are very likely to win in Texas. So first of all, it's a response. It's not something that was initiated out of nowhere. Second, it's temporary. For the next couple of years, if this passes, these districts will be in place, but then after the 2030 census, we'll go back to what Californians voted for, namely redistricting by people from the community, not by politicians. We're in favor of that. Part of Prop 50 says California is in favor of that and encourages the federal Congress to pass a law mandating that for every state. With Republicans in charge, there is no chance of that happening. So first of all, it's a response. Second of all, it's temporary. And there have millions of dollars have been donated by Republican donors to get publicity against Prop 50. I'm sure you've seen the ads on TV. 99% of that money comes from one person, Charles Munger Jr., whose father was Warren Buffett's partner and made billions of dollars through investing in the stock market, and apparently passed that on to his son, who is a Republican who has sponsored some terribly undemocratic things, and yet was also a major sponsor of the community redistricting. So I give him credit for that. Community redistricting was a good idea. I want us to go back to that. Once this attack on our democracy is no longer front and center. So, thank you. So these attacks do a couple of things. One, they ignore the fact that it was a response. Second, they ignore the fact that it's temporary and often misrepresent that it's permanent. So, I think that's it. Oh, they ignore the fact that Trump and his accomplices are trying to destroy our democracy. Minor factor. So it seems to me real obvious that we need to vote yes, pass Prop 50, and stop the destruction of our democracy. Thank you.
What does Bernie say?
And Bernie Sanders says yes on Prop 50.
Karen, birthday girl.
Will the redistricting separate Santa Cruz County?
No.
It's already separated. 19
Well,
is
because a
unchanged.
long time ago, Scotts Valley and, north part of Santa Cruz was lumped together with San Jose. And then they changed it so that we would be in the district of the Santa Cruz County.
19 isn't changed.
The proposed map does not change the 19th.
Yeah, the 19th remains the same.
Yeah, so I just got a question. I'm totally yes on Prop 50. That's the one thing that I feel like we should definitely work with the Democrats and with the establishment on, especially if Bernie has endorsed it. My main concern, though, is that Gavin Newsom has not been the most progressive candidate at all whatsoever, or the most progressive governor, first off. And second off, that's the least we could say. And second off, something worries, because the governor is running for president. He is going to run for president, and he is going to run as a Democrat. And the one thing that is a huge concern of me is that he'll use the win of this election as a way to further propel his presidency or his presidential campaign, thereby preventing progressive candidates like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who might potentially run for president, like Ilhan Omar, from contesting the Democratic nomination against Gavin Newsom. So that's my main concern. What's your thoughts on that? Yes, I'm 50, but
My thought is one step at a time. I have doubts about Gavin Newsom too, but at the moment, he is stepping up. He is saying the right things that need to be said. He is taking the right actions. And certainly Proposition 50 is one of those actions. 2008 is a long ways away. If he doesn't continue to say the right things, then let's not vote for him in 2008. But in the meantime, there may not be a 2028, did I say 2008? 2028, if we don't get this taken care of right now.
Thank you. All right, I didn't see anybody volunteer to speak for the no on 50 position, but I did want to give a last call for that. Okay, so now we are going to move into two Santa Cruz City measures. We will start with Measure C. For the yes on C position, we have Bruce Van Allen here, who will speak for 5 minutes. Watch for the timer. Laura is our timer. I forgot to mention to everyone. So welcome, Bruce. Take it away.
Well, thank you, Sandy, and thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. I have to say a couple personal things. One is that it was sweet to see Bernie, and I was mayor when he was mayor, and we had the country surrounded at the time. Lost a little ground since then, but we keep plugging away. The second thing is, so to me, Santa Cruz is in a very severe displacement crisis. People, especially renters, are being pushed out of town by rising rents, rising land prices, and it's basically what I would call the property state is what is imposing itself on us and preventing working people, retired people, low-income people, immigrants from being able to afford housing in this area. And so it's a really severe problem, and especially at the local level, we don't have very many tools to deal with it or to influence what can happen with getting genuinely affordable housing. And Proposition C on the city ballot is an attempt to at least come up with a local source of revenue that help pay for subsidizing affordable housing. And it is a compromise measure. It's not what I wanted, it's not what Sandy wanted, it's not what John Hall wanted. It is something that was put together in order to remove opposition that would kill it. And for those of you who've been paying attention, you know, we on the progressive side are losing against the property state lately. We lost on rent control multiple times. I was in every one of those campaigns. We lost on the empty homes tax. Measure O, which was a mixture of progressive and anti-city coalition, lost severely. We do not have an electoral majority in Santa Cruz right now. So to me, taking part in a compromise measure in which we got a lot, even though we got some things that we don't want in the measure, was worthwhile. I'll briefly mention the, actually, what's my time right now?
3.5 minutes.
Okay. The Measure C has two revenue sources. One is a parcel tax. It's $96 a year. It's fixed. It lasts for 20 years. The burden of that $96 a year will slowly diminish over time. And the nice thing about a parcel tax, and what got me to agree to it as part of a compromise with what's much larger revenue source in the transfer tax, what makes the parcel tax okay for me, aside from that it is not inflationary, is that it's a predictable revenue stream. So the city, with 20 years of very predictable revenue, can go out to the bond market, sell bonds, and have money at the beginning, $20 million or more, to help a project get going. And that's crucial. Local government has no leverage over affordable housing money these days unless you have either land or money. We don't have land here, so there's no city land worth developing. So money, that gives us the ability to leverage state and federal tax credits, foundation subsidies, and all the other possible sources of affordable housing. You don't get that money seriously for local projects unless you have your local commitment. The transfer tax is tiered. There is no tax on sales below $1.8 million. The median sale price in Santa Cruz recently was 1.3. The tiers go up from there, so at 1.8 it's 0.5%. It goes up from there up to 4 million, and those tiers adjust for inflation. So that will continue to go up, which means the taxable tier will stay above the median housing price over time. So it leaves out most homeowners, most first-time buyers, but does grab quite a bit of revenue from the really high-end sales. And that's where it ought to come from, in my view, is from the wealth. So to me, most of the money is going to come from the transfer tax, not the slowly diminishing amount that will come from the parcel tax. And so it makes it a fair balance. In addition, the money can be used not just for new development, which is what we're focused on now, but conversion of existing rental housing to social ownership, nonprofit ownership, or cooperative ownership by the residents. This is something we actually started to do during the progressive governance in the 80s and the early 90s. We were doing that. We converted mobile home parks to cooperative ownership. We built a bunch of permanently affordable housing, and we should get our city back on that, and we need this revenue source in order to do that. I think I had something else I was going to say. Let me just look at my notes here. So another thing, it does not help private developers meet their inclusionary requirements. It may not be used for that purpose. If they're going to build, they have to include some affordable units. This money doesn't go for that, but it can go for conversions, it can go for even emergency rent for people that lost their job and can't pay the rent this month. That is a radical change for this city to actually directly help tenants. It can go to help fund the Tenant Sanctuary, which is our local nonprofit that I'm on, Sandy and I are on the board of, that provides legal services for tenants. And the commitment, I don't know quite how it will turn out concretely, is that we'll help finance alternatives to shelters and encampments for people who are houseless now. And I think that's going to be a tough one to solve because of land prices and so on, but at least this revenue can be used for that purpose. So anyway, this is not ideal. A lot of us didn't want some pieces of it, but we got enough that was good, so I urge you to vote yes on Measure C. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Because I am the moderator, I get to say this. I am a beneficiary of that work that was done. I live in a low-income co-op, one of the only low-income co-ops in our community. And I have stable housing for the first time in 30 years of living here as a result of that. So thank you for that work. I hope we can continue to do that in the future with hopefully some resources. I'd like to, before we take questions, I'd like to invite Hector Marin to speak for 5 minutes on a no on C position, and then we will take questions from the floor.
All right, thank you guys. Thank you, Progressives, for being here. And I also wanted to express how humbled I am to be here with y'all, and just to feel like the positive change that we got going on around here, the culture that we're cultivating. So give yourselves a round of applause for being here. Come on, Progressives, come on. We need to asistir con orgullo, with pride. All right, guys, so my name is Hector Marin. I'm a current Santa Cruz City Schools educator. I am also a former city council candidate. I'm an active community organizer. Santa Cruz for Bernie has endorsed my campaign previously, and I'm urging folks to vote no on Measure C. Me and Bruce, I mean, we're both friends, we're both comrades, we're both on the same side, so I don't want, two folks to know, to think that we're divided, but on this specific issue, we are divided. And we can both also agree that when it comes to the affordable housing crisis, this crisis is very vast and we gotta resolve it and remediate it, but Measure C only sells us scraps. That's what Measure C gets us. It doesn't give the pueblo, it doesn't give the barrio, it doesn't give our vecinos and our neighborhoods and renters the proper sustainable solutions that we desperately need within this affordable housing crisis. And let me point out as to why that is. First off, community involvement. There was no community involvement or no community outreach in which progressive voices were elevated. The Santa Cruz Democratic Central Committee had a voice. Santa Cruz Together had a voice. Unions had a voice, which is awesome. But did Santa Cruz for Bernie have a voice? Did our PAC have a voice? We were not invited to a table for a reason. And that's mainly because we organize and we educate and we agitate in a way where we demand not only a seat at the table, but we want the entire table so we can further democratize and ensure that we truly tax the wealthy. That's the main reason why we didn't have no seat at the table at all whatsoever. So first off, the formation of Measure C and the coalition did not truly involve progressive voices, and it definitely did not involve our neighborhood members as well. Neither did it involve renters. The second point that I also want to make is It's a very regressive tax. The one thing that I do agree with this tax is the transfer tax rate in the way that we are taxing the ultra wealthy in terms of folks having only 2.5 million, 3.5 million, 4.5 million dollar property values. But let me take a step back, because if you further delve into that tax initiative, there's a $200,000 cap where mega developers who are gentrifying the living out of the city of Santa Cruz, they don't get taxed under this initiative. Not only do they not get taxed under this initiative, a $10 million home is taxed at the same rate as a $4.5 million home and in its property value if you do the math. The math ain't mathing when it comes to Measure C, and it's not truly progressive. We do want to ensure that we have true affordable housing solutions para nuestra gente, for our people, but Measure C is not the answer, mainly because it only gives us scraps. And we have a right to reject any scraps that the local oligarchs give onto us. And we gotta wonder, we gotta ponder to ourselves, why was that $200,000 cap instilled there where the mega developers who will make billions off of the city of Santa Cruz in their mega development, why were they not taxed? We gotta ask ourselves that. Oh, I can ask y'all that, or I can answer that question for y'all. It's because Santa Cruz Together, the Santa Cruz Together PAC has agreed that they would be okay only if that cap was included. So the ultra wealthy, so the local oligarchs, so the true millionaires and billionaires that live within the county of Santa Cruz, they're not going to get taxed from this at all whatsoever. And there could have been more funds, millions more, 10 million per year. That's good, but we could have had 20 million per year, 30 million per year. 40 million per year, you get what I'm saying? Because that's the necessity that we need within our people. And let me further delve into the specifics of how this entire initiative was formed. 90% of this tax is going to go into affordable housing, or quote unquote affordable housing. But the current affordability metrics, they ensure and they state that at the medium income level, which is $100,000 in terms of yearly salary pay. If the city of Santa Cruz checkmarks that box, that means that they checkmark the box of affordability. Therefore, very low income and extremely very low income folks are left out in the process. Seniors, retirees, working class families, la señora que trabaja, who works in the Del Pueblo market, who is also working at the hotel service industry. They will not be seeing the prospect benefits that they could have had we removed that $200,000 cap and had we truly taxed the ultra wealthy. So I urge y'all to consider a no vote on Measure C, mainly because we got to go back to the drawing board so we can truly tax the ultra wealthy, so we can truly tax the mega developers, so we can get a vast amount, multi-million dollars for affordable housing in which our city so desperately needs. And if you look, Bruce Van Allen stated that 10% of these funds go into rent relief and all that, but if you look at it, 10%, 90% goes into affordable housing developers who are catering to the medium, to the middle class income to provide housing for them. Meanwhile, the rent relief is very vastly minimized and proportionalized. So that is something that we also got to consider, and most of these funds will be overseen by the city staff, the city council, a democratically elected board, the city commission, a citizens oversight committee could have been formed in order to do that. But it hasn't, because instead a city staff is being overseen within these, the city staff is overseeing these funds. $10 million worth of funds per year. How many minutes do I got? How many minutes? Oh, can I say two last things, sorry about that. So, and you can have more time, Bruce, if you so desire. But let me ask y'all this one question. Do y'all trust the city council with more of your taxpayer money? No. They have removed progressive representation within the city council. So that's the first point. And the last point that I'm going to be making is that a solution. I'm not just being a contrarian for the sake of being a contrarian, Bruce. I love you, man. But we could have formed a rent relief trust fund where we could have had more billions of dollars in which could have assisted and ensured that we had eviction programs for our people, for renters, for tenants, and that ensured more work, and that ensured that workers were truly housed. There are no reinforcement mechanisms within this tax initiative, and that's why I'm urging y'all to vote no on Measure C. Gracias, comunidad. Gracias, comunidad. I hope that my progressive tíos, my progressive tías, you know, my progressive familia votes no on Measure C, you know?
Thank you,
Thank you.
Roger.
I would like to take a couple more minutes, and I'm just going to say
I'm
one
going to give
thing.
Bruce 2 minutes here, but let's really try to move this along. We
To
need
me,
time. We need
politically,
budget.
one of the great advantages of this measure is that that revenue from the transfer tax, which is going to go up, it's going to be $5 million the first year, $7 million the next year, it's going to keep going up, that you can't bond against because it's too irregular. So it has to be used every year, which means there are decisions for it every year, which means that we would have something to organize around. When we got control of the city council in the end of the 70s and the early 80s, it wasn't about environment, it wasn't about growth control, it was because we pulled together a coalition based on spending, on the budget, because we precipitated a fight about what to do with federal revenue sharing money. We had a community congress that came up with our alternative budget, and I just want to suggest fighting over actual money that can be put to good use is a very good thing, a very handy thing to organize around. And that will be an opportunity for us politically every year. So to me, that's a tremendous political advantage that leads us to the possibility of getting our majority back. So anyway, that's one more piece of the puzzle from my standpoint. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And generally, I don't have people back up for rebuttal, but since we did give Hector quite a bit more time, just wanted to make sure that you had equal time. I see a...
Help me understand, Bruce, one thing you said, which is the city has no land.
Yeah.
And so now there's the potential for raising more revenue in order to do what with affordable housing if the city is out of land? What will be done with that money?
Well, for one thing, conversion of rental housing, existing rental housing that may be substandard or just that is available to be converted to social ownership, that would be one thing. But the other thing is, the point of the city needing either land or money is that's how it gets leverage to bring in the outside money and get the approvals. Land doesn't have to be owned by the city, but if the city owns it, it can do a lot more. So sure, this could apply for projects that are on what's now private land, but it would help by having the money there to get the project going and make it work. So that was a more general statement that you need either land or money to get the leverage to bring in the outside money. And in this case, the city has very little of its own land that isn't already, in office buildings or something like that. So that's why I say.
Or arenas.
Yeah, or an arena.
So this is a question for Hector.
Yes.
You discussed a lot of things that we should do instead of Measure C. So I want to ask, why not do Measure C and then keep working on those other things in addition to Measure C?
So the one thing that I want to really urge y'all to consider, do y'all trust the city council with more of your taxpayer money?
No.
No. Was Santa Cruz for Bernie involved as a PAC when it came to the formation of this measure? No, we weren't involved.
Yes.
Were we involved?
I was involved.
You were involved. Was there a community outreach strategy? Were you involved with neighborhood members, and were you involved with working class folks in the barrios within the city of Santa Cruz to further involve them in the process?
You asked whether anybody was involved.
Exactly. There was no outreach strategy.
You said that you were glad that a transfer tax was part of it.
Yes.
And that wouldn't be the case if there hadn't been community members, myself and others, involved.
And what I'm saying is that if we truly involved the community and the barrios, we could have removed that $200,000 cap and we could have generated more affordable housing for our people. But no, instead, because the Senate puts together...
I'm just answering your question about whether anybody else was involved. That's
yes, thank you. And I appreciate you delivering clarity for that. So thank you, brother. But so to get back to your question, Brett, what I'm hearing, and even Bruce stated this, is that this coalition listened to Santa Cruz Together as a PAC to the opposition, and in my understanding, it appears to seem that this coalition heeded to the demands of the Santa Cruz Together PAC instead of going directly to the people. Instead of going directly to the people and involve them in the local political process, as Bernie has been urging us to do. We gotta involve everybody within the local political process, and this coalition did not do that. Instead, local political insiders were involved, and that was it. And their voices were prioritized. So,
Can you explain the transfer tax? Who pays the 25%? Is it the buyer or seller of a property? How does that work?
Well, it's a negotiation. It has to be paid. Typically, the seller pays it. But it's really up to the two, the buyer and the seller, and perhaps their agents as well, to negotiate something. It just has to be paid. And we're talking about sales of pretty substantial amounts, and the tax, 0.5% on 1.8 million is not really very much money when you're at that level. So to me, that is not an inhibition to those people at that level transacting their business.
Did you say it was 25%?
No.
Oh.
0.5% at the low tier.
Yeah, right.
25% would be awesome.
Factually, that the seller generally pays. And you want to respond?
Yes, I wanted to respond just very quickly also. Most housing or homes within the city of Santa Cruz are priced at 1.3 million. With all this mega development, that value is going to go all the way up in terms of property values. So working class families in their homes will also have to pay this one-time tax. And economics is economics, and very quickly I want to say that when it comes to renters, homeowners are the ones. They're the housing providers. They are a housing provider, right? I'm not saying that they're awesome. They're just a housing provider. As Measure C passes economically, the home purchasing market will further be squeezed, meaning that there will be less homes that will be sold off, and I'm whatever's with that. But renters, the landlords and the homeowners will bear most of the cost of the burden of that tax onto the renters indirectly, not directly, indirectly as a result of economics, and then the rents will be increased, therefore, as an effect. So that's why I'm also critical even of this regressive component,
I'm going to stop you there because you're talking about something that she didn't ask about. So I just want to... Gavin. Thank you, Gavin.
I co-lead one of the leaders of Santa Cruz YIMBY, who of course supports all sorts of different types of housing, affordable market rate. And though we generally support market rate developments, it's not the only answer. It's not the best type of housing. Even with vacancy chains, which have been studied, that lead to housing getting built at higher income levels that free up housing at the bottom, that's fine and all, but that's only about 60% of market rate development that frees up homes at the bottom. There have been many studies that have shown that when you build, for example, 100 market rate units, there are 40 to 60 units that are freed up at lower income levels. And what I'm saying is that that's fine. That's a reason to support market rate housing, but that's not the only answer. We need housing of all types at all income levels, and that's what Measure C will do. It will fund truly affordable housing, which is what is really the most needed. So I just wanted to speak to that point and say I support this. It's progressive, but it also has made a compromise, like Hector's been saying. Measure N was great, I supported it, but it failed because it got defeated by the wealthy interests. And we've made a compromise, and they're not supporting it, by no means, but they're not going to take an active role in opposing this measure, which means the voters will actually get the chance to decide and to pass and to fund affordable housing, which is what's most needed. So I fully support this.
Thank you. Jan, I saw your hand up.
I guess this is probably more of a question for Cruz, although it might be a question for both of them. Are the levels in the transfer tax indexed for inflation?
Yes.
They are. Just what, based on CPI or something?
CPI, yeah.
Thanks.
Would keep them above the median.
Pardon? It keeps them above the median.
All right. Leslie, you're up.
Big question for you. You want to shoot down C. What do you think of B?
Oh, no.
Wait, hold on. The polling on this is not good at all. We need to have C in place, or we may end up with B, or we may end up with nothing at this point. Okay, so if you don't like C, what do you like about B?
I am opposed to Measure B. I'm also urging y'all to vote no on Measure B as well, because when it comes to the Real Estate Association, they have fought against us plenty of times when it came to Measure N, Measure O, and we were defeated because of them. Rent control as well.
Thank you, that's all I needed. Thank you.
All right, Sean, question.
Could the cap be lifted later with another prop?
Would
Would it take another prop?
The measure states expressly that the city council may not change any of the rates, but a vote of the people may.
Okay.
So we could do a subsequent ballot measure to strengthen it, add to the higher tiers, et cetera. Yeah. But it's an organizing question. To me, this is about practical politics. I don't believe we could get something passed that's as strong as what Hector is advocating for. That's why I'm willing to accept this now and give us opportunities in the future to do further organizing.
And we want to make sure that we have time for our last measure in the event that there are folks here who would like to come up and speak that's Measure B, which has already been mentioned. This is another similar measure in some ways, parcel tax, transfer tax, however, very different levels. And so B was placed on the ballot as a competing measure in order to defeat Measure C in the event that it got 50 plus 1. If that measure gets more votes, even by 1, then that measure is going to be in effect. So that's what Leslie was referring to. I just wanted to clarify that. It's whichever one gets the most votes will be enacted, assuming at least one of them gets 50 plus 1. So I will invite up Bruce Van Allen, if you could maybe just a succinct message about your position on Measure B, and then we will take questions if folks have them.
So Measure B, as Sandy said, it came out of the realtors. There was an initial possibility that the local realtors were going to stay out of it. But they got pressure from their statewide organization, which is fighting transfer taxes all over California. And San Jose has a very successful one. Los Angeles has a very successful one, raising hundreds of millions of dollars now for affordable housing. And so the realtors, they don't, and they're ideologically and economically against transfer taxes. They hate them. They don't want their measure to pass. It's purely to confuse people, and if it gets more votes, then it supersedes Measure C. But it is just a election campaign tactic on their side. They don't want it to pass either. And we know that because we've seen memos from their statewide lobbyists. So it's just a strategy thing. So please vote no on B.
Thank you. And if I could just add, they're not secret memos. They're published on the Santa Cruz Association of Realtors website. You can see the Q&A explaining why they have done this, which Bruce has summarized for us.
Make a statement. I tried to look at, not really thoroughly, but I compared the provisions of the two measures. They're very similar in a lot of cases, except that B has a threshold much higher than C. So in other words, almost all sales would be exempt. And then the money that's collected, it has a lower parcel tax. I mean, this is a cheapy bill for everybody else. But the money that's collected, it says, in the C, it says something like 78% is going to go directly for, 79% is going to go directly for affordable housing. And Measure B says the 79%, they use the same figure, is going to go to affordable housing and climate mitigation. And they mentioned that it could be used for rebuilding the wharf, for example. So it's going to bring in less money, and it's going to have almost nothing going for affordable housing.
So if this B and C are kind of competing, does that mean, like, if you don't want C or B, you can't vote? There's no way they're both going to go down. Like, one of them has to be winning.
No. When you go to the ballot, you will vote yes or no on each of these. If you want both to go down, just vote no on both. And it's up to the rest of the voters, whatever the numbers come up to.
But it sounds like that whenever one of those gets more votes, it'll pass.
If either of them get above 50% plus one vote, then the measure that has the highest votes wins.
But if they get less than 50%, neither will.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Amanda.
Maybe Bruce can remind me,
in Measure B, I believe that there is a languaging in there that invalidates C. So if they both pass, there's still potential that it could defeat C, is that correct?
Yeah, Measure B has language expressly
It's
naming
very
Measure C
insidious.
and invalidating it. But it's still, what we got is a legal determination that the one that gets the most votes will prevail. So if they both pass and C gets more votes, then that provision in Measure B does not prevail. If C gets the most votes, it will be what happens.
There.
So let me just make sure I'm understanding. It sounds like what you're saying is the realtors put in B to try to prevent C from getting 50 plus 1%, yes?
Yeah, well, yeah, for that and to just confuse everybody and create a diversion. It'll be interesting to see what kind of campaign they come up with. We expect it's primarily going to be vote no, but we'll see what they say about their own measure. But we know from their internal communication they don't want theirs to pass either.
So they're going to have a campaign vote no against the thing that we put in there?
This will be an interesting thing to see.
Who do they think they are, Donald Trump?
Some of them do, actually.
Hector is Hector gone?
He's outside.
Okay, so this is for Bruce. For those of us who may not trust the city to spend our tax dollars wisely because of the political direction we see, how can we be assured that this money is not going to be misspent by our city council?
Well, there's a couple parts of it to my answer to that. One is that, like I say, all of this is about continuing to do political organizing and try to get progressive control back over the city. So that is always there as one way to make sure the right thing is done with this, and that means better staff response as well. There is another aspect of this, though, which is that the grand jury last year did an examination of the city's policies and uses of its affordable housing money and had some pretty severe criticisms of the lack of accountability for the use of the money and, in particular, the lack of commitment, seemingly, to providing affordable housing for people who already live in this community, who already work here, retired here, teach here, and so on. And so some of us are right now working on negotiating. We have the mayor saying he's willing to listen to a proposal, and I'm working with Jillian Greenside, who is on that grand jury, and several other people. Sandy is in on it too, and we are right now and John Hall from ODOF, trying to devise something to take to the city council, ideally before the election, that will strengthen their commitment to using this money in the right way. And I'm actually beginning to be optimistic that we are going to get somewhere with it. Rick Longinati is helping, Lyra Filippini, Sandy and I are in the middle of it, and we're now reaching out for lawyers to help us actually come up with what would be fairly bulletproof language on this. So I'm hopeful that that process is going to unfold as well. This is nitty-gritty politics, and we are using, the Measure C campaign is feeling vulnerable because there is so much distrust of the city. And so if I can be really frank about it, we're using that as leverage to get concessions from the city right now. And this accountability piece might be one of them. Another accountability piece that we did accomplish was securing longer-term funding for the tenant sanctuary nonprofit, which I mentioned earlier. They were trying to undermine it, and we leaned really hard, again, using the leverage about support for Measure C, and just a few days ago got a commitment for the contract for the year. So this is possible. This is roll up your sleeves and get a little dirty with the politics, but it's important to do it. So maybe dirty is not the right word, but muddy.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
For our caucus, we've invited the general public to join us, and the general public can participate in our discussion, but when we vote, then you don't get to vote. It's only going to be Bernie members who vote. Okay, first question that we talked about was Congressional District 19.
We're rolling.
Is there any discussion? Oh, well, I guess we could start with if anybody would like to make a motion. Yes, Bruce.
I'd like to move that Santa Cruz for Bernie endorse Sean Doherty for Congress.
Okay. Motion, is there a second? Second. Okay. So, opening discussion on the motion. Is there any discussion?
Call the question.
Yeah.
Okay. Hearing none, I will call for a vote on Sean Doherty endorse Sean Doherty for District 19. And the way you vote is you hold up a blue card, and I would like a couple of people to volunteer.
Yes.
This is yes in favor of the motion, and I would like somebody to help me count. Who's going to count? Can you help Cindy?
I have 3, 2 for somebody who's not here.
I have, that's 15.
I got 15. We're only counting 1 because.
They had to leave early due to medical reasons, so Celeste and Matilda, both of whom helped us, left a ballot with me.
Yeah, right.
They wrote on it.
Are we, have online vote, are we online?
Online is doing it separately.
They're doing it separately,
Yeah.
okay. So 12.
Okay, so that was 15 and maybe 17 with a couple of proxy votes, which we're not supposed to allow, but.
They were here.
But they were here for the whole
Yeah.
thing. Okay, so 17, is that fair?
It looks unanimous, basically.
Yeah, are there any votes against that proposition?
You have to vote for somebody else, right?
No, you can vote
Just vote
no.
no on Sean Doherty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
You can vote on an endorsement.
It's a weird way to vote, but okay. There isn't anybody that's going to do that anymore.
So there's a motion, so we say people in favor of the motion, people against the motion. Okay? I don't see any. Are there any abstentions? Okay. Is that an abstention? Yes, please. Okay. So who's got a pencil and paper to write this down? 17 to and 1 abstention. Okay? All right, moving on to Prop 50. Is there any, would like to make a motion on Prop 50? Are you making a motion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I move that SC for B endorse Prop 50.
Okay. There's a second. Okay. Any discussion on Prop 50? Seeing no. It's great. We just keep people up late at night and we're all done talking. Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your card.
Since I'm sitting down, can you sit down in front of me?
Try.
15?
I'd like to. Just get over this side.
15.
16.
Huh?
16? I think it's 16.
16? Okay. All right, 16, counting 3 for Nora. Oh.
Stuff in that ballot box, right?
17, actually. It was
17,
It's the
right.
same as before, yeah.
Okay, 17, and anybody opposing this motion? Any abstentions? Okay, one, do you have a blue card? Okay, 1 abstention. Oh.
I know, I'm voting for it.
Oh, you're just,
Yeah.
okay. So that was 17 and 1 abstention.
Yep.
Okay, moving on to Measure C, City of Santa Cruz Measure C. Anyone care to make a motion on, yes, go ahead.
I move that Santa Cruz for Bernie endorse Measure C, the City Affordable Housing Initiative.
Okay, all right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, that's second. Any discussion on Measure C?
Discussion. Measure C.
Call a question. I can tell you something that Micah told me Micah Posner told me at his table, which was, it was either B is for brokers, C is for community, or maybe it was B is for bullshit and C is for community. So I just thought I'd share that. It helps to remember which is the good one.
Yeah, I would like to just add that measure, that saying, okay, I can't say that if it's just that. But Measure C, I think progressives can get a fair deal if we involve everybody within the local political process. And we reintroduce this initiative next year so we can get true solutions for our people. That's my main issue with Measure C. And Fred Keeley has been, he personally donated $50,000 of his own money to support yes on Measure C. A mayor that we did not endorse in 2022. We endorsed Joy Schenelbeck, and who has caused so much destructive policies towards our people in the past 4 years.
Okay.
Like no on the genocide vote.
And he voted against the ceasefire.
He voted against the Palestinians.
He voted against, and he told us that black and brown Palestinian babies.
I want to speak to the question about the distrust of city government. And I share that distrust. I was one of the people who worked very hard on Measure O after the bait and switch of Measure S that was supposed to renovate the library. So I know a fair amount about distrusting city government. On the other hand, we're not voting about whether Fred Keeley should be in office or the present city council should be in office, and they're not the ones deciding how the money gets spent. If we look to the city's record, and people are going to push back on me on this with me, I think, but if you look at the city's record of processing applications for 100% affordable housing, they have followed through on that. You can trust them that they are following through on spending the money on affordable housing. Projects that I am okay with, the Cedar Street 100% affordable housing next to the Red Church. Projects that I abhor, the library Lot 4 project, 100% affordable housing. So I just want to say, I don't trust the city either, but they have shown that they spend the money that they have on, that is in a trust fund that is exclusively to be used for affordable housing. They have shown that they honor that.
Do you know, do they track once they rent something out as affordable?
No.
I heard they don't even keep track. Somebody moves out and the next person moves in, it doesn't, no longer has to be.
They have management companies that are very strict about that.
They do keep track of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's some nuance with this particular question, and it's one of the reasons that we are working on trying to get the city to adopt a policy that will do better in tracking, because we hear mixed responses about where that's happening. In some cases it's happening well, in other projects it doesn't happen well, and the city needs to take a stronger role in that. We will push them to do better. And I'm going to be supporting this. I want to say that this, another thing that maybe hasn't been made totally clear, this is not a general purpose tax that the city council can direct towards whatever they want. It is a dedicated tax. We were able to do that through signature gathering and based on a court case that said, if you collect signatures and put something on the ballot, you don't need the 2/3 vote for a dedicated tax. In California, we need 50% plus 1 for a general tax, which means that they can do whatever they want with it, even if they say they're going to do good things with it. With a dedicated tax, the money will go into our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and it will need to be spent on affordable housing. So just want to make sure that's clear for folks before you cast your ballot.
Any other? Yes, Nora.
I'm going to speak against the motion. I think the question of accountability is paramount. I think this is cart and horse stuff. I think those should have been details to be nailed down and ironed out before this measure comes before the people. And I think the question of trust in a city council that either looks at the composition of whoever is on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to dispense funds. I think the question of trust in this city council and a few city councils before this, with the exception of former council member Brown, you know, I think that has to be taken into consideration. If I were a city voter, I would vote no on the measure, but this is the only way I get to vote no.
I'm voting no because the parcel tax is in fact a regressive tax. property ownership is not wealth. There are people throughout the county, particularly in the city of Santa Cruz, who bought a house 40 years ago. Today, they're living on Social Security. And every year, there are numerous attempts at parcel taxes and other types of regressive taxes. And I think this opposition to regressive taxes has been a long-standing view of the Santa Cruz Bernie organization. I'd like you to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Yes, that's the reason that this parcel tax part of this, which some of us didn't want, but we accepted it in the larger picture, is fixed. It doesn't rise with inflation. The burden goes down every year. And it also exempts low-income families, low-income seniors, nonprofit housing projects, co-ops, and stuff like that. So it will not affect almost all of those house-rich, cash-poor residents that are still here.
Our dear sister Sandy was on the city council for 8 years, and for 8 years she tried to get a progressive tax called a transfer, real estate transfer tax, and was not able to. And so this is the closest we've ever come to getting a real estate transfer tax. And the objection that it's not perfect, if you look at Santa Cruz for Bernie's record in the last 8 years, I mean, we elected, since we elected Sandy, we've lost on rent control, we've lost on, you know, our downtown, we've lost
everything else.
We lost, you know, we lost 2 city council members. If we think that we have the strength to throw this out and start over, and that we have the political clout to get something better, I think we're dreaming. And so I think if we get some transfer tax, then when we finally get somebody elected, there'll be some money for them to be able to work with.
The $200,000 cap exempts mega developers from being taxed and slumlords from being taxed also. We could have generated a higher amount of money for affordable housing had that cap not been there, and that cap has been in place because Santa Cruz Together, quote unquote, promised this coalition that they were not going to be involved and that they were going to not do an opposition campaign if this cap was instilled, and that is them protecting their own wealth. That's them protecting their own properties. And people say that the intention doesn't match the impact, but sometimes the intention does match the impact. And we got to ask ourselves, why wasn't Santa Cruz for Bernie, and why wasn't our PAC, and why wasn't our progressive coalition invited into the table of this discussion? Why wasn't the body involved within this discussion? I think we're not outnumbered. We are simply out-organized, and if we can all dedicate ourselves to organize para nuestra gente, for our people, we can definitely have those solutions. Because I have a dream. We all have a dream, as Martin Luther King said, and dreams do come true, Jeffrey. That's what I'm trying to say, brother. But I got much love for y'all. We may disagree. We all want what's best for Santa Cruz. Regardless, I love y'all.